The sergeant looked at Leah with contempt. "Madam, this cattle will be confiscated. Direct orders of the mayor." Leah, a black girl with simple and dirty work clothes, kept her calm. She was standing in front of the gate of her little place. The strong sun punished the dry earth. "Based on which document, Sergeant?" she asked with a firm voice. The policeman laughed, a dry and arrogant sound. "My word is the document. Now get out of front or I'll take you by contempt." Two other police officers behind him watched, with their hands in their belts. Leah knew that order was illegal. The mayor of the region was a powerful man, known for taking small producers' lands. Confiscation of cattle was the first step in forcing it to sell everything for an insignificant price. This is a scene that is repeated in many places. If you are against this type of abuse, leave your like and subscribe to the channel to see the outcome. Comment on your city and the word justice, because this is what we are looking for today. The sergeant signaled his men. "Open the gate. Let's take the animals." They began to move, confident that the situation was resolved. But Leah didn't move. She just watched, waiting for the right time to act. The police thought she was just another helpless farmer. He could not be more mistaken. That mistake would cost your career. What happens when authority abuses your power against the wrong person? Sergeant Silver saw Leah's calm as an insult. He was used to crying, supplications and despair. It was what he expected. Her tranquility irritated him. It was not the first time he had done this kind of service for the mayor. It was usually fast and easy. The reward was always worth it. The place was isolated. The nearest neighbor was kilometers. It was the perfect place for an act of intimidation without witnesses. One of the police, Cabo Matos, a robust and obedient man, was already moving to open the fence with pliers. The other, a younger soldier named Alves, seemed uncomfortable. He was looking at Leah and then to the sergeant, as if questioning the legality of the action. But Leah didn't see the scene like a frightened farmer. She saw a crime being committed by state agents. His judge brain recorded every detail. The absence of a court order, the abuse of explicit authority, the names he could read in the uniforms, the sign of the official vehicle. Every passing second, the sergeant and his men sank more. Leah decided to give one last chance. His voice cut the air, clear and accurate. "Sergeant Silver, I will formally record the names of all present. I suggest that the Lord reconcile. What you are doing is misappropriation and violation of home, executed with serious abuse of authority." The accuracy of the legal terms shocked him for a moment. Then the anger took over. He stepped forward, his face inches from hers. "Are you threatening me?" The sergeant's question was in the air, loaded with threat. "Are you threatening me?" Leah didn't look away. His voice remained in the same tone, low and sharp. "I don't make threats, Sergeant. I formalize facts." Her answer, so accurate and cold, was the drop of water. The anger blinded Sergeant Silver. He pushed her to the side with his shoulder, an act of aggression he didn't even record. "No more conversation. Take this cattle now," he shouted at his men. Cabo Matos advanced, decided. Soldier Alves followed him, but his steps were slow, uncertain. It was then that Leah did something they didn't expect. Without a hurry, she took an old, simple, model-old cell phone from her pants. She didn't seem to be filming. With the thumb, he dialed a number he knew by heart. The phone called it once before being answered. Leah's expression changed. The tired farmer's face gave way to an impenetrable mask of authority. His voice now was another. It was the command voice. "Hello. Here is the head judge of the Agrarian Court, Leah Mendez. Functional registration 783B4. Immediate requirement of the military office and federal police." She paused, looking straight at the sergeant. "The officer responsible for the illegal operation is Sergeant Silver. Plate vehicle QRF3J21. I repeat, everyone in listening, the situation is flagrant and the agents refuse to cease the criminal act." The metal pliers fell from the hand of Cape Matos, hitting the ground floor with a deaf thud. Soldier Alves took 2 steps back, pale, as if he had seen a ghost. Sergeant Silver froze. The color disappeared from his face. The words echoed in his mind. Judge, Agrarian Court, Corregidoria. Federal police, it was impossible. It was a nightmare. There, in that piece of forgotten land, disguised as a rural worker. Leah hung up her cell phone and put it in her pocket. His gaze was pure steel. "The order is for you to stay in place and wait. Don't try to leave. The area is already being surrounded." The next few minutes were the longest in Sergeant Silver's life. The silence on the site was total, broken only by the occasional cattle of cattle. There were no shouts, no orders, no arrogance, only the sound of the wind in dust, and 3 police stopped, waiting for the end. Soldier Alves was the first to break. He looked at Leah, wide eyes with panic. "Doctor, Judge, with all due respect, I didn't know, I swear, I was just fulfilling orders." Leah turned to him, the expressionless face. "Compliance with a manifestly illegal order does not exempt the agent of criminal liability. You are a police officer, should know that." The cold and technical answer hit Alves as a punch. He retreated. "Shut up, Alves, don't say anything else," growled Sergeant Silver in a desperate whisper. He tried to maintain control, but his authority had evaporated. He looked at Cape Matos, which was pale and trembled, staring at nothing. The blind loyalty of his subordinate served for nothing now. Silver then turned to Leah, trying one last card. "Doctor, can we talk? Maybe solve this in another way." It was a misunderstanding. Leah didn't even win. "There is nothing to talk about, Sergeant. The Lord is in the act, has committed abuse of authority, coercion, and aggression. The only conversation you will now have will be with an officer of the Corregidoria." At this very moment, a distant sound began to grow, a pulsating, rhythmic sound. The helicopter paddles sound cutting the air. It was approaching, and fast. The sound became deafening. A black helicopter, with the insignia of the federal police, emerged on the horizon and descended quickly, raising a cloud of dust and dry grass. He landed in a field open 100 meters away. At the same time, 2 unidentified black pickups arrived by the dirt road, blocking the exit. The doors opened and strongly armed agents descended, moving with a frightening efficiency. They surrounded the 3 local police in seconds. From the helicopter door descended a tall man with impeccable uniform, with the insignia of the military police colonel. He walked straight to Leah, ignoring the other 3. "Dr. Leah, we received her emergency call. Are you okay?" he said, the serious and respectful voice. "I'm perfectly fine, Colonel Bastos," said Leah. "But the law has been assaulted here today. I want everything to be done according to the most rigorous procedure." The colonel nodded. He turned to Sergeant Silver, who seemed to have shrunk inside the uniform. "Sergeant, you have no idea the size of the problem you got into." Silver opened his mouth to speak, but the colonel raised his hand. "You don't say anything. You're not just being investigated for abuse of authority. He pointed to Leah. It's the final piece of a long investigation into a land scheme and extortion of land in this region." The colonel made a signal to one of his men, who approached with a radio. "They can act. The mayor is already being detained in his office right now." The revelation fell like a bomb. It was not an isolated incident. It was not about cattle. It was about everything. Leah had not only been defended, she had activated the checkmate in a game she had been planning for months. The operation was fast and impersonal. The 3 police officers were immediately disarmed. His weapons, once symbols of power, were placed in bags of evidence. They were searched and handcuffed with their hands behind. The humiliation was complete, performed in front of the woman they tried to intimidate minutes before. Sergeant Silver did not resist. He was in shock, his face empty while the federal agents led him to one of the vehicles. His world of power and small corruption had crumbled in less than an hour. He looked at Leah a last time, but there was no triumph on her face, only the cold indifference of justice. Soldier Alves, on the other hand, tried desperately to save himself. "I can witness, I tell everything. The mayor forced us. The sergeant received money on the outside. I can prove it." He quickly spoke to the agent who carried him. Corporal Matos remained silent, shaking uncontrollably, unable to process the speed of his fall. Leah watched everything from afar, next to Colonel Bastos. She didn't feel sorry. I felt the cold satisfaction of a well-executed plan. An agent approached her. "Dr. Mendes, Colonel asked me to inform her. The anonymous complaint we received 6 months ago about the mayor's scheme. We tracked her to an unregistered phone. It was the lady, wasn't it?" Leah gave a slight smile. "The first of the day. I needed a bait to make the big fish come out of the den. Today's attack in the act was the last piece that your investigation needed to act without leakage. They bit the bait. She was not the victim. She was always the hunter." With the situation under control, the capture adrenaline gave way to the next phase of Leah's plan. Growth for her was not an internal journey. It was the expansion of its action. the consolidation of its revenge against the entire system that oppressed small producers. Colonel Bastos approached her with a tablet in his hand. "The mayor is confessing everything, Doctor. He is delivering names of entrepreneurs and other civil servants. What do you want to do next?" The question was a formality. He knew she had a plan. Leah looked at her cattle, who now fired quietly, oblivious to the drama. Her overcoming was not about saving her animals, but about ensuring that no other small producer went through that. "Colonel," she began, her voice loaded with the weight of the authority she no longer needed to hide, "their arrest is just the beginning. I want the task force to establish a basis of operations here in the municipality. I want a complete survey of all suspicious land transfers in the last 5 years. I want each family that has been forced to sell their land at prices to be found, heard, and oriented to enter reparation and annulment actions." She was no longer disguised. She was the agrarian judge in her most important court, the field. She took the tablet from the colonel's hand and started pointing to areas on a digital map. "Let's start here. This area was bought by a mayor's cousin last month. I'm sure we'll find irregularities." His revenge was not just arresting 3 police and 1 mayor. It was dismantling their castle, brick by brick, and returning the earth to its true owners. The following hours were an avalanche of coordinated actions. Leah's farm has become a temporary operations base. While the mayor sang everything he knew in an interrogation room, federal police teams executed search and seizure warrants around the city. Advocacy offices, corporate headquarters, and public offices were searched. The police's subplot closed quickly. Soldier Alves, in exchange for a smaller penalty, detailed the entire scheme, delivering dates, values, and names. His cooperation sealed the fate of Sergeant Silva and Cabo Matos, who remained silent, sinking with the ship. The tension now focused on the larger fish. The man who funded the scheme, a powerful businessman named Dr. Montero, was the real target. He was known to be untouchable, always protected by a wall of lawyers. Leah, now in a makeshift room in the city's forum, coordinated the legal offensive. She was no longer in work clothes, but in formal costumes, and every order of her was performed without question. The rhythm was frantic. Evidence arrived at all times, documents, recordings, testimonials. The siege was closing. Then the warning came from Colonel Bastos. "Doctor, Montero is moving. A private jet was fueled at a private airport. He will escape the country." The final hunt had started. The race against time was the essence of the climax. While federal vehicles accelerated towards the private airport, Montero lawyers were already acted, flooding the system with preventive injunctions and habeas corpus to prevent arrest. It was a brute battle against legal cunning. Montero was confident that he could take off before any warrant was made. From the command center, Leah watched the legal battle unfold on a screen. She saw Montero's lawyers' attempts to create a legal shield. She knew that the bureaucracy could be too slow. "They will delay the warrant until he took off," said Colonel Bastos, frustrated. "They won't," Leah said with a deadly calm. Its transformation was complete. She was not just a judge. It was a relentless stratega. She took the phone and called her office in the capital. "This is Judge Mendez. Urgent. Prepare a maximum security court order. Based on the National Security Law and the Code of Criminal Procedure, Article 319, Item 3, prohibition to be absent from the country." His voice was quick, accurate, every word a gun. "But add the following. Based on the federal investigation underway for gang formation and crimes against the economic order, decree, urgently, the seizure of all assets and the blockade of all aircraft registered in the name of Otavio Montero and its companies. Airport Control Tower." At the airport, Montero walked quietly down the track towards his jet. His lawyer smiled, confident. The federal vehicles were barred at the gate. The jet engines began to rotate. Suddenly, they stopped. The access ladder was removed. Through the pilot's radio, the order of the control tower was clear and final. "Take out for federal court order." At this point, the airport gates opened. The federal agents advanced on the track. Dr. Montero, the untouchable man, was handcuffed in the steps of his own plane with his pale face of unbelief. Across the city, Leah hung up the phone. Checkmate. The consequences of Operation Clean Terror, as the press baptized it, were devastating to the corrupt and redeeming to their victims. The headlines stamped on Leah's face. "Judge disguised down the millionaire scheme." Sergeant Silva was sentenced to a long penalty for extortion, abuse of authority and gang formation, losing his position and retirement. Cabo Matos and the mayor received similar sentences. Dr. Montero, seeing his empire collapse, made an award-winning denunciation agreement that exposed an even greater corruption network, leading to the fall of dozens of other entrepreneurs and politicians. But Leah's victory was not in the newspapers or condemnations. It was in the scenes that were not televised, in the agrarian restitution teams visiting humble families, returning the titles of their lands, in the tears of relief from an elderly man, in signing the document he gave him back to his grandparents, in renewed hope in a region for so long oppressed. Weeks later, Leah was back at her site. Work clothes were no longer a disguise, but comfort. Sitting on the porch, with a cup of coffee in her hand, she watched her grazing cattle. The peace she felt was not the peace of those who hide from the world, but the deep and satisfactory peace of those who fixed it. Revenge was complete, not because the villains were punished, but because justice was finally restored. 6 months later, Clean Terror Operation had become a model for the country. Leah's courageous action inspired a wave of land grab investigations into other states, proving that a single act of resistance could start a silent revolution. Far from the spotlight, in his official office in the capital, Leah received a young couple of farmers. They were nervous, intimidated by the formality of the place. They were the first to benefit from the new rural credit program she helped create with the recovered goods of the corrupt. Leah looked into her boy's calloused hands, so similar to yours when she was on the site. The cold authority mask she used to execute her plan was not there. Instead, she offered them a genuine and reassuring smile. "Don't worry," she said softly. "The law is now on your side. Let's start." His revenge was cold, surgical, and structural. But in the end, what she planted was not fear in the guilty, but hope in the innocent. She not only punished, she reconstructed the balance of justice with her own hands. Leah's story shows that true strength does not always scream. Sometimes she observes, plans, and acts at the right time, with the accuracy of a surgeon. Justice may take time, but when it comes to the right hands, it is relentless. If you watched this far, comment, "I watched the end," so I know that you followed this amazing journey. What did you think of Leah's strategy? Leave your opinion in the comments, and don't forget to click on the video that is appearing here on the final screen. It's another story of turnaround and justice that you won't want to lose. Until next time.